Willie Nelson's journey into music began not in the world of opportunity, but in a small, impoverished town in central Texas. Born on April 29, 1933, in Abbott, Texas, his early years were marked by hardship. His parents, Ira and Mielle Marie, were young and struggling. Ira, just 20, and Mielle, only 16, married young in the midst of the Great Depression, driven by survival rather than love. The marriage faltered quickly, and when Willie was just 6 months old, his parents walked away, leaving him and his sister Bobby behind. With no parents, they were raised by their grandparents, Alfred and Nancy, who were deeply religious and rooted in the Methodist Church. It was Nancy who introduced Willie to music, placing a guitar in his hands at the age of 6 and teaching him to read music before he could even fully grasp life's complexities. The absence of parents and the rise of music. Willie Nelson grew up knowing the absence of his parents without any fanfare. There was no dramatic event, just an absence that settled quietly within him, leaving a permanent mark on his soul. His grandparents' love and care were generous but could never fully compensate for the emotional void left by his parents. As a young boy, Willie was aware of the fact that his parents had walked away from him without so much as a goodbye, a fact that would shape his entire life. His childhood was filled with a mixture of farm work, faith, and music. Music, for Willie, was never just a hobby. It was a form of survival. The sounds of gospel, blues, and country that filled the air around him offered a language that did not require permission. It became his refuge from the pain of abandonment. A quiet, defiant early music career. By the time Willie was a teenager, he had already experienced enough hardship to last a lifetime, raised by grandparents struggling to fit into school, and working in the fields alongside grown men. He was developing a work ethic and resilience that would define his career. At just 9 years old, he was playing guitar in a local band, earning his first money from music. By 10, he had already written songs with a maturity beyond his years. Music was Willie's way of being seen, a voice when he had no platform. It was not something he sought fame from, but rather a necessity that provided him the means to exist. His childhood was marked by quiet grief, but music gave him a purpose, a way to express everything he had been holding inside. Even at such a young age, Willie understood the power of a song to heal, to communicate, and to survive. Leaving Abbott, the struggle begins. Willie left Abbott, Texas, with the typical ambition of a young man seeking something beyond his small-town roots. He was filled with hunger, but also uncertainty, convinced that somewhere beyond Abbott, the world was waiting for his unique talents. However, reality did not welcome him with open arms. He found himself drifting through life, taking on various jobs just to make ends meet, including selling Bibles door to door and working as a plumber's apprentice. None of these jobs fit. None of them were the life he imagined for himself. But through it all, he continued to play music in small honky-tonks and at local radio stations. His voice filled the airwaves, even as his pockets stayed empty. Despite the years of struggle, Willie held on to the belief that music was his destiny. He was just waiting for the world to catch up. Early personal life and struggles. In the midst of his early struggles, Willie began his first marriage in 1952 to Martha Matthews, a woman of Cherokee descent. Their marriage was as tumultuous as his career at the time. The pressures of poverty, constant absences due to his musical pursuits, and the inability to find stability at home led to a strained relationship. Willie, deeply devoted to his music, often found himself caught between his dreams and the reality of a family struggling to survive. Martha, overwhelmed and frustrated, reacted in ways that reflected the anger and helplessness they both felt. They would eventually divorce in 1962, but not before their 3 children, Lana, Susie, and Billy, experienced the effects of their parents' fractured relationship. For Willie, fatherhood became another area marked by absence, echoing the pattern set by his own parents. Breakthrough as a songwriter in the 1960s. Despite his personal and professional setbacks, Willie's songwriting talents began to emerge. It was during these tough years in Texas that Willie wrote some of the most iconic songs in American music history. Crazy, written for Patsy Cline, became one of the most recorded songs of all time. In addition, songs like Hello Walls and Funny How Time Slips Away solidified his reputation as a gifted songwriter, even if the world had yet to recognize him as a performer. But the songs he wrote were not enough to secure him a place in Nashville. Although the songs themselves were reaching audiences and earning widespread acclaim, Willie struggled to gain recognition as an artist. Nashville's gatekeepers were not interested in the man who wrote these songs. They wanted a polished, marketable image instead. The battle with Nashville's industry standards. Willie Nelson arrived in Nashville in 1960, armed with nothing but a battered guitar, a notebook full of songs, and $31 in his pocket. His goal was to break into the country music scene, but the smooth, orchestrated Nashville sound that was popular at the time had little room for someone like Willie. His voice was raw, conversational, and heartfelt, and this did not fit the pristine, polished sound that Nashville was seeking. He faced criticism and rejection from producers and executives who believed his voice sounded too rough, too unpolished, and not suited for mainstream radio. They told him his phrasing was wrong and that his delivery did not match the formula for success. Nashville rejected Willie not for his lack of talent, but for his authenticity. He wasn't willing to compromise his sound, and they weren't willing to bend their standards for him. Writing hits, not getting credit. Despite his struggles, Willie continued to write and produce songs that would go on to define country music. His songs were recorded by some of the biggest names in the industry: Patsy Cline, Farron Young, and Billy Walker, among others. Crazy became a signature song for Patsy Cline, and it remains one of the most beloved country songs of all time. But despite the success of his songs, Willie remained largely invisible as an artist. He had written some of the most important songs in country music history, but had little to show for it. The royalties were being paid out, but Willie's own financial situation was still dire. He sold Crazy to Patsy Cline's publisher for a mere $50, a deal that reflected the lack of respect songwriters often faced at the time. This was the same song that would eventually be covered by countless artists and become a staple in country music: resilience and recognition. Willie Nelson's resilience during these years of hardship is a testament to his character. Though he was ignored by Nashville, his music reached the ears of listeners, and his songs began to have a life of their own. He was writing in poverty, but his creations were resonating with people. Willie refused to let the industry's rejection define him. Instead, he continued to write, perform, and live with the unshakable belief that his music mattered. His refusal to compromise his authenticity eventually paid off. In time, the world would recognize the talent that Nashville had dismissed, and Willie Nelson would become one of the most iconic figures in American music. But it wasn't the world's acceptance that made him a legend. It was his refusal to be anything but true to himself.